Hello, Lindsay. How are you?
Excellent, Aubrey. How are you today?
I am great. Did you hear that California's government just created a happiness committee? What do you make of that?
I love that idea. I love the idea of governments looking into what makes human beings happy and what governments can do. I think a lot of happiness honestly comes from inside. That's my kind of sense. But I think there probably are things that governments can do to kind of help out a little bit. And now I want to
Absolutely.
see that movie that this came from.
Yes, a
Happy?
documentary called Happy that it was sort of inspired the creation of this committee. I know I
Yes.
want to see it too, and I agree. And it's interesting to think about how much the economy could affect a person's happiness, which the government
Oh
definitely
yeah.
has a lot to do with that. So interesting,
That's a fair point. Right. It's yeah, if people are really struggling financially, it's hard to reach that level of
right?
happiness in many cases. It's a complicated topic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Guys, hit follow on this show. We are going to talk about some really interesting grammar today that you are going to be able to immediately take out into the world and use it for connection. Right, Aubrey?
Exactly. We got this great question about a couple of phrasal verbs that are very tricky because they're very idiomatic and the meanings are different if they're in past tense or present tense. So let's read this question
All
and
right.
dive in so you guys can confidently use these phrasal verbs.
All right, so this student is Esben, and he says, I'm a student from Taipei City, and I always hear Allers English when I'm on the way to school. All the episodes are useful and they improve my speaking skills. I like the way you teach and the subjects that you've talked about. I'm not so afraid to communicate with native speakers now. Ooh, that is so
I
good,
love that
Aubrey.
so much. Yes, what a win.
Yeah, what a win. But I do have a question. I hope that you can teach me or even explain more details on the podcast if possible. Could you teach me what is the difference between make of and make from? The school teacher told me that it's based on the element of the object. However, I'm still confused. Is it really based on the substance? Are there other correct and easier ways to know how and when to make use of these different but similar phrases? I can get your response. Have a good one. Esben, your big fan. Amazing.
Yes, such a great specific question. I can totally understand why this answer from this teacher would be confusing,
Hmm.
especially where they're switched here, right? Espen is sharing
Right.
make of and make from, which have totally different meanings.
Right.
But the meanings he's referring to that this teacher's talking about are actually past tense of these phrasal verbs, made of and made from. So we're going to share
Right.
both today so that you understand how they're different, what they mean, and how to use them.
Okay, I'm excited to get into today. We're really getting into this grammar and going to kind of take this head on so you guys can use it. Getting into number one, the present tense of both of these verbs, right?
Exactly. Make of, which is what we used at the top of the episode when I said, what do you make of that? We use this very idiomatically. It means understand or what do you think about something, right? So
Hmm.
we'd say,
Hmm.
what do you make of this? What do
Yep.
you make of that? It just means, what do you think about that?
Right, right. Or I don't know what to make of her behavior, right? I don't understand her behavior. So if you say, I don't know what to make of it, you just don't know what to think, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And then make from is a little bit different. That means to create something from various other things. Like,
Hmm.
what can you make from this clay? So, this is very much more using it as a verb. Like, what can you make from this other substance?
Right, and sometimes we might say that a kind of food is made from, for example, oat flour instead of traditional flour, right?
And
Or made
that
with.
you have given a little bit of a highlight into what we're about to talk about
Oh, I just
because
used the
when
past
in
tense, didn't
past
I?
tense, made from, but these are similar, right? Because if you use it
Yeah.
in present tense, that's similar to the past tense one, made from. What is this
Right.
made from? Or you can say, what can you make from this? Both of those are about taking some other kind of substance, changing it to create something new.
Okay, so with the from, we're not completely changing the meaning when we go from the present tense to the past tense, but with make of, we do when we move into the past tense. Is that right, Aubrey?
Exactly. For make
Okay.
of, it's a whole new meaning.
Okay.
They're both very idiomatic. Make from, that one's a little bit different, where the meaning
Okay.
is more similar. Just the grammar changes when you make
All
it
right.
past tense.
All right. And that's what we're going to get into right here. All right. Let's take a quick break. All right, Aubrey. Now we're back. So, where do we go into the past tense? What do we want to know
Yes.
here?
So these are the meanings that Esben's teacher talked to them about, where we're referring to something based on the type of material or how something changes. So
Mhm.
first, made of. How do we use made of?
All right. So made of the raw material that something is made of, right? So for example, this table is made of wood, right? The wood that is used to make the table is wood.
Exactly. It's still wood. It hasn't changed really, right? The
Yeah.
sidewalk is made of cobblestones. We didn't change those cobblestones. We just threw them down and made a sidewalk.
Got it. Okay. All right. And then something that is made from, Aubrey, what do we think here?
Yeah, so this is used when talking about a material that has been changed. This
Mhm.
sculpture is made from clay. So that clay
Mm.
was changed quite a bit. Maybe it was put in a kiln and now it's a bronze sculpture, but the original
Mhm.
material was clay. We made it from clay.
Got it. Okay. And then, so where do we go from here, Aubrey? What should we do next?
Yeah, we have one more example. This is where I hear this phrasal verb used the most, really.
Mhm.
Wine is made from grapes. And this is a little tricky because you wouldn't say wine is made of grapes. There's quite a change that happens to take these grapes and turn them into wine. So, this is when we
Mm.
use this phrasal verb in the past tense to talk about what something is made from.
Oh boy. Okay. And so what could be a good pro tip for today, Aubrey, in
Yes.
terms of, yeah, what do you think?
I love this pro tip. So, when in doubt, use made of. Because for
Mhm.
all of our examples, no one's really going to bat an eye if you
Right.
just say made of, right? Even though there
Right.
has been a change, like there's quite a big process, it still, native speakers might even say made of for all of this. Wine is made of grapes. Not the end of
Right.
the world. The sculpture is made of clay. Sure. Even though it changed, right?
Mhm.
Whereas when we say made of, it will sound more off to us if we use made from. So when in doubt, use made of. Let's listen to these examples with made from and see if they sound off to you, Lindsay. Ready?
Mhm.
The
Okay.
table is made from wood.
Okay.
That sounds
Maybe,
strange, right?
yeah, it does sound a little off. So I think
Because
I would
nothing
probably
has
avoid that.
changed, right? We're just, when we say something is made of plastic, something is made of wood, whatever
Mhm.
it's made of, and it's just sort of in its own form, made of
Mhm.
definitely sounds more correct.
Right. I agree with that. Yep.
And
Mhm.
then the sidewalk is made from cobblestones.
Right. Not quite right. Right?
Right, because we haven't taken these stones and done anything to change them, so that sounds more off. So this is a
Mm.
great pro tip when you're trying to decide whether to use made of and made from. Esben's asking like, what are some tips? How can I know which to use? Your pro tip is when in doubt, use made of.
Yeah, my mom. This makes me think of my mom because she was always a stickler for making sure that she was buying things made of real wood. She was always all about the real wood thing. Nowadays, we're seeing more and more kind of composite coming into furniture, right? And but she just it was just a quirk of her personality. She was kind of an old fashioned, or she is a little old fashioned, I would say.
Yes, and we want to think about when we're trying to think of this, reminds me of the episode we did about diamonds, right? And we're talking
Yeah.
about things being ethically sourced, right?
Hmm.
What is something made of? If we're talking about lab grown diamonds, that's where these phrasal verbs would really come into play, right? If we're saying this is made from calcium and magnesium or carbon, and you're talking about a process, that's when you're going to need these phrasal verbs.
All right, Aubrey, let's go into a role play for today's episode, shall we?
Yes, you and I are at a weekend arts and crafts festival in this role play. Want to start us out?
Yeah, here we go. So what do you make of this event?
I'm blown away. I came to this festival last year and it was much smaller.
Oh, nice. Oh, there's so much jewelry. This bracelet is beautiful. What do you think it's made of?
Maybe silver? Oh, it looks like there are metals blended here, though. I'll bet the artist made it from several different metals.
You're probably right. It's stunning. I wish I could make something beautiful like that from metal.
Nice. I love it. We used all of them here.
Yeah, this
Very
is
useful.
and these are great examples, right, of how broad and diverse, made of really is.
Yes,
So,
exactly. But such different meanings if it's present or past tense. So, first you said,
yeah.
what do you make of this event? Which this is the most useful way to say it, right? Meaning, like, what do you think? What do you think about this event? So native and natural.
Yeah, and I don't know if we mentioned this earlier, but if we sometimes say, "What did you make of it?" We do
We
sometimes, right?
didn't
But not
really
as
talk
much.
about that, but we will
Mm,
sometimes, like, afterwards say, instead
afterwards,
of, "What did you think about that? What
"What'd
did
you
you
make of
make of
that?
that?"
What'd you make of that?" I guess it's okay. Yeah, maybe it's more common in the present, but we do sometimes say, "What'd you make
Mhm,
of that?" Right?
mhm, absolutely.
Okay. So, all right. What else, Aubrey? What
And
else do we?
you said, I said, I'm blown away. And you're talking about jewelry. You said, what do you think this is made of? So that's that third use, past tense, meaning like a
Mhm.
raw material that something is made out of.
Yeah, and then you said, "Oh, maybe silver?" "Oh, it looks like there are metals blended here. I'll bet the artist made it from several different metals."
And this is
So
number
mhm.
4, right? Made from, meaning that the materials have been changed. That's where it's a little tricky. We would say it's made of silver. Oh, it's made from several different metals.
Interesting. Okay, and then what's the last thing that I said?
Yeah, you said, I wish I could make something beautiful like that from metal, which really highlights how these phrasal verbs are separable. You've got make, and then the direct object here, make this from metal. And that's number 2 there, present tense, the phrasal verb meaning to create it out of other things.
Great. This is good stuff. I know our listeners love to see these words come alive in a role play.
Absolutely.
So what would be our takeaway for today, Aubrey?
Yeah, phrasal verbs can be extremely tricky. Today's really
Mhm.
highlight how sometimes they're very idiomatic. You can't tell the meaning of it just from taking the verb and its auxiliary. It
Mhm.
might change the meaning entirely depending on the verb tense. If it's in present tense or past tense, it might have a totally different meaning.
Got it. And I think the biggest connection skill here today is, getting deeper into guys, the what do you make of this? What do you make of that? It's a really great way to start a conversation to get someone's opinion on anything,
Yes,
right?
this is so native and natural. Instead of saying, what do you think about that? Not that that's wrong, but it just feels like you said, Lindsay, it's such a great way to connect, to throw out something that you have, even with the diamond thing again, if you say,
Sure.
oh, I heard this podcast about diamond. What do you make of that? What an interesting, it sort of makes it a little more informal, a
It's
little more
very neat.
friendly, the
Mhm.
conversation. I agree.
100%. And guys, if you don't know what we're referring to, we did an episode 2192 just earlier this week about the conflict around diamonds and how to start a conversation on that one. So go back and listen to that episode and hit follow on the podcast while you're at it. All right.
Awesome. So fun. And use this in your next conversation. Ask somebody, bring up any news article you've read, a podcast you've listened to, maybe a TV show, and then follow up with this question to spark the conversation. What do you make of that?
All right. Good stuff. Thanks for hanging out today, Aubrey. I'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Lindsay.
Bye.
Bye.